In the myth of Yunu, SHU and TEFNUT are born as twins, which makes them inseparable since they're so closely related. But before we get into each one individually, I just wanted to present something about how these two cosmic laws work so perfectly together. As brother and sister, SHU and TEFNUT were the first male and female principles to come into being, and the myth describes their actual birth as being explosive, using words like spitting, coughing, and ejaculation, which are all immediate releases of body fluids. And each one is associated with an utterance or sound, and sound is the cosmic principle represented by ATUM. SHU and TEFNUT represent the abstract concepts of space and time, that is, not measured space and time, which first appear with their children Geb and Nut, but rather all space and time, which is difficult for the mind to grasp. So to make it a little easier, we can think of them as here and now. Because after all, every moment of your life has been spent while you were here now, present in the eternal moment. In the coffin texts, ATUM says, "When I was alone and new, incapable of action, I found no place to stand, I found no place to sit." As the first entities to exist, ATUM embodies the state of I am. And seeing his children, SHU and TEFNUT, as space and time, they place him in a context and form a triad that reads, I am here now. The firstborn of the two, SHU represents what we normally call space, and as the second netta to be revealed, he introduces the number 2 and the principle of duality. But because of our materialistic way of thinking, plus being under the law of duality, we tend to think of space as being full or empty. Look at this glass of milk and an apparently empty glass. The milk fills the space in the first glass, yet we see the second glass as empty. Also, we see the gap between things as space, which is therefore empty. Or again, we see a planet as a solid body suspended in space, that space being empty. But in reality, there is no full or empty space, because the entire universe is filled with something that our minds cannot fully understand, and that is SHU. While I'm not a fan of modern science, I did a little research into helium, and its close affinities with the netta SHU and ancient wisdom were quite significant. Both SHU and his twin sister TEFNUT were considered solar nettas, and the name helium derives from the Greek helios, meaning sun. Scientists give it the number 2 in the periodic table of elements, defining it as the first monatomic gas, hence a direct link to his symbolic father ATUM. Wikipedia claims it is the second most abundant element in the universe and directly connected with plasma. So for those of you interested in quantum physics, this will make much more sense, because it introduces things like electromagnetism and subjects that are way beyond my present understanding. But I'd love to hear your reactions to that in the comments below. Here on Earth, we call that empty space air, which we live and breathe in every day. And carried in that air is a most vital substance that's a property of the net SHU, the breath of life. Since every living thing breathes, SHU became linked to air, and in the coffin text, SHU says, "I do not obey magic, the Netta Heka, for I came into being before him. I am SHU. My clothing is the breath of life, which issued after me from the mouth of ATUM." So here he's saying the breath of life is his clothing, the invisible substance wrapped around his body. And this explains why bringing awareness to your breath is the closest way to stay connected to the source. SHU's sister TEFNUT represents time, and all life as we know it exists in space and time. But TEFNUT represents the abstract principle of unmeasured time, which our brain cannot understand because it has no restrictions or limitations. The first three nettas revealed in the myth represent purely abstract metaphysical concepts. So to make things a little more personal and try to see how TEFNUT relates to us on the human scale, I'd like to introduce the symbol of the cross. The cross shows two lines that literally cross each other, and in relation to time, that point marks now. We usually think of time as something linear, shown here as the horizontal line with birth at one end and death at the other. But the vertical line presents a different concept. It runs above and below the line of linear time, giving it depth, which is exactly what TEFNUT's time is all about. Linear or clock time is quantitative, whereas the vertical line is qualitative. And just as the sound of a cello string can vibrate at a greater or lesser depth, the moments where a deep resonance crosses the horizontal line create what we call deep memories. While these are fixed in linear time, TEFNUT's time is interdimensional and embraces all of your so-called lifetimes in the eternal present. This explains how you can feel you've known someone forever, even though in linear time you just met them a few minutes ago. It also explains how time can seem to pass so slowly or even stop, whereas at other times it simply flies by, depending on the quality of your now, the time of TEFNUT. Space and time are so intrinsically linked that they can only be separated by the analytical methods of the left side of the brain. And that's why the ancient sages portrayed them as twins. And just as they provided a context for ATUM to appear in, they define the space-time reality that you chose to live in, with SHU and TEFNUT present to every moment of your life, wherever you happen to be. So I hope this clarified some things about these two very important nettas, and stay tuned to learn more about them and other nettas in the upcoming videos by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. And you can also support the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description below, where you can leave any questions or comments. And as ever, thank you for watching.